I'd like you to do first is just go down the line and introduce ourselves real quick, and then I'll get you to explain what PCSL is, and then we'll go from there. If you're cool with that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Ben, go ahead. Not Ben Steger, other Ben. Go ahead.
Just introduce myself.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my name's Ben Isaacs. I'm from Central Kentucky area. That's how I know primary idiot Ethan.
Yeah.
Been shooting USPSA. This will actually be Sunday. Will be my 1 year mark. So I've been shooting for exactly a year. I shoot some running guns as well, but I primarily just stay in carry optics. But I've been wanting to find a reason to shoot a rifle. So that's the reason why Ethan had me on tonight, is because as soon as I saw PCS starting out in that format, it was really piqued my interest because it seemed as a way to quickly integrate that. I got a lot of friends that are in like the more tactical community, like from night vision, running guns, and they're obviously pushed away from USPSA due to a lot of the reasons that I think Max created PCS. And so I'm highly invested in running those matches, and I'm also just a guy that likes to shoot rifles. So that's why I'm here tonight. Currently, like I said, shooting carry optics, just middle of the road, A-class guy, but I'm trying to do something more fun with some rifles.
Oh, it's me. Hi, I'm Ethan. You guys know me. I'm a V-class nobody, and I like to talk shit on the internet. Go ahead, Harambe.
Harambe, I don't shoot anything because guns are bad. Okay. That was sarcasm.
Funny.
Somebody won't laugh at
Good
that.
start. Transfer.
I'm What's Your Transfer? I'm just a dude that talks shit about guns and tries to poke his head into matches here and there, and I'm looking for somewhere to kind of really plant my feet for matches and stuff, so PCSL is definitely interesting to me.
Okay. I've heard I heard you guys on Ben's podcast. So like I told Ethan, I just listened to that on the way over. And he's like, I'm gonna have one other guy on the show, and then so he got all you guys, so that's cool. He's busy making connections in the last like 20 minutes, I guess. Sweet.
Yeah, well, this is my whack pack.
Okay.
I'm just becoming Howard Stern. That's what we're doing.
That's why I wanted to come on here. You guys are so different from any other podcast that usually reaches out.
Yeah.
So I guess take that as a compliment.
I guess.
Or you should be really concerned, one of the two.
I am
concerned, I think.
That was my turn, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm Max Leograndis.
Yes.
I've been competitive shooting for about 7 years, since I was 21. I got into it watching videos of 3-gun and USPSA, and then I got, I guess well known shooting PCC. I hold all the titles in PCC since it was released as a USPSA division. I feel like I got good enough to the point where I could see, like definitely not, the best in the world by any means, especially in like handgun or 3-gun, but I could kind of see the path to what that was, if that makes sense. Like you get good enough to the point where you can see what it would take to be the best in the world in the sport that you're in or what's available. And it was less interesting to me than something with a 223 platform rifle and a handgun. And there's a lot of reasons why I started PCSL, but just had an awesome opportunity working with the Cobalt guys out in St. George, and rather than trying to convince USPSA to go in that direction, I just decided to do it myself, just because I had the opportunity. Like it could have been way different. So this is where we are now.
Awesome. And I feel like USPSA as an org is at a point where it's either going to become what IDPA became, which is just like nobody shoots it, or it's going to fall apart entirely. And I think PCS might fill that void.
I kind of disagree. I think USPSA is going to recover somewhat slowly from all this stuff, and I have more of a positive outlook on it. But I definitely don't think they're going to be the fastest horse. Like they're just making any changes or it's just so slow, with the board of directors and everything. And like, hopefully, I do think behind the scenes they're wanting to go in the right direction. It's just going to take a lot of work and time.
So you're not really viewing yourself as a competitive organization to USPSA. You're trying to offer something entirely out of a different mindset of what competitive shooting could be. Like, where was that kind of direction going with that?
Okay, so I mean, PCSL obviously competes with USPSA in the same way that like IDPA does, and I guess multi-gun or outlaw 3-gun matches in the same way. But I'm definitely not trying to just go after the USPSA crowd, if that makes sense. Like, I am designing from the ground up what I, with all my experience and everyone who I've talked to about it, hope is or has the potential to be essentially the premier shooting sport in the world, while at the same time being modern and for regular gun people. Like, basically capitalizing on the paradigm shift that has happened where tactical hobbyists or people that are just somewhat curious about guns, like want to train, want to get somewhat proficient within the broad firearms community. I feel like recently, within the last few years, there's been a huge shift in the perception of like how good competing with other people on a timer actually is. But then there's a lot of things that ruin the experience. And kind of the approach that I've taken with PCSL is to strip everything down and get rid of every single thing that ruins the sport or hobby. And while at the same time building it up in like 3 pillars that I consider of what a premier shooting sport in the world needs to have. And one is it needs to be enjoyable, otherwise people won't participate in it. So maximizing all these 3 segments is kind of what I am designing the league around. And they all work together and blend together. But the way I kind of think about it is the 3 segments or pillars that I'm trying to maximize are how enjoyable the league is, how accessible it is, and then how challenging it is, or that goes into like prestige. So like, how prestigious can a title be in one of the major championships? And obviously those all play into each other, right? The more accessible it is, the more people are competing. The more prestigious it's going to be. And that's kind of the basic framework.
I like the framework of that. That actually makes it seems fresh, and I like that because I feel like there's a lot of people that kind of come from a background that they want to go shoot their AR and they want to go shoot their Glock. They want to go do stuff like this, but they kind of have this like gap that they really don't have anywhere to go, right? They don't like shooting shotguns except for if they go hunting, right? So they don't want to go shoot 3-gun matches, and they don't want to go shoot USPSA because they don't feel like they want to buy the full USPSA rig, right? This seems like it could be a culture. Yeah, it seems like it could actually be a good middle ground for people, and like that's the accessibility is interesting to me, actually. That I think is what holds a lot of people back. Like, challenging is one thing, and like you can get a really challenging stage, and I think every venue can come up with a really challenging stage if they try hard enough. Like, you can do it. But accessibility seems like it's a forgotten point of it, because one of the points that I was thinking about after we had Ben Steger on, and Ethan and I kind of got into the conversation of if you should be able to shoot from appendix or not, right? And does it matter?
Yeah.
And I would agree with Ethan on his point of it doesn't matter, but if you're a college kid, like 21 years old, and you bought your first gun and your first holster, and you want to go shoot a match because you want to get better, well, if you show up and they tell you can't use this, you got to go buy a bunch of stuff, you're like, well, fuck these guys, I don't want to be here. Like,
yeah,
the accessibility point is super cool. So I really already like that.
Yeah, and it goes like you said. Anyone can make a challenging stage, and like I wanted to find that more because I haven't really spent that much time, with like semantics on the framework. But when I say challenging, I don't necessarily mean hard. But I view it more from a point of like, let's say you were someone who wanted to take this seriously. What would the challenge be to become the best or one of the best in the world, or your region, or your state, or anything like that? It doesn't necessarily mean difficult because the sport is, competing against other people. So I want to have like a competitively equal, basically just scenario where everyone can put their skills and their gear against each other, and it's actually extremely simple to understand. And like, obviously, anyone who competes in three gun, USPSA, IDPA, they'll get it instantaneously. But I wanted to streamline it even more to make it or basically difficult to master and easy to learn for everybody.
I like it. Yeah. Ben and I were just complaining, I guess, about all the USPSA divisions and how there's too many. And as far as I'm reading it in your rules, you have 2 divisions. Is that correct?
Yeah. So one of the things I want to discuss with you guys tonight, and like why I would like rush back on my drive to talk tonight specifically, was I do want to talk about a 1-gun division set. But for 2-gun, I'm extremely happy with the 2 that we have. And we can maybe add a third, but I at some point, that's got to be way in the future when participation is way bigger. Because
Right.
part of the challenge is that you do shoot against a lot of great shooters, and not everyone's spread out in their own division. Like happens when you adapt multi-gun to be like for 2-gun irons and 2-gun optics and this and that and 2x4 and 2x4 irons and 2x4 optics or tack, or open. It's like, yeah, so that really frustrates me. I've participated a little bit in like pretty much everything, so I get where you're coming from.
No. So go ahead, transfer. Sorry.
So when it comes to that, like the division thing, did you essentially just kind of take the idea of, we consider the idea of pairing you all fairly with people that shoot similar things, and decided to not do it, and you're all going to be shooting basically in one of 2 camps, and shut up, go shoot, have fun?
Yeah, but at the same point, it totally is people that are shooting similar things, with little nuances in the rules. Like kind of everything starts to build itself. Like if you're building a rig out for one of these divisions, and we can do some theories of like what you guys would ideally bring to a match too. I'd like to do that and see like what you think would perform the best, and we'll see like how different it actually is versus your gear that you would bring that you have now.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in that. I'm looking up the divisions now, but just for the sake of the listeners, could you describe the 2-gun divisions that you were talking about here?
Yeah, so really simple. It's the Practical Competition Shooting League. At one point I was going to call it the Practical Shooting League, but there was a PSL acronym taken by some bench press guys already. So I added competition in there, and it actually works out really well since the 2 divisions are Practical Division and Competition Division. So pretty easy to remember, PCSL, Practical Competition Shooting League. So really important for me was to keep both platforms very competitively different in both the divisions, while essentially restricting things that only really matter. So I want everything to be as free as possible, because just having all these extra rules where you have to ban this and that, and then people are questioning like, oh, is this base pad that I got, it's a millimeter too long, but it holds, maybe it's a poor design, and it holds like 1 less round actually than the one that fits. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So if I can remove those points of friction, that's kind of the approach that we took. So basically, you have competition division, which you can think of as open. And one thing that's important to keep in mind as we go over the divisions is I am not dealing with chronograph at all, and everything is going to be scored minor, or it is scored minor. So essentially, there's no advantage to swapping calibers. Another thing that's important is that with the rifle, or carbine, the maximum target allowed or target distance allowed and minimum target size allowed is 8 MOA at any distance and 200 yards maximum distance. So that also makes it super accessible to people, who don't have time to sink into developing a 75 grain or 77 grain long range load or buying them for $1 each for the 20 shots in the match that have them. So, yeah,
you can just buy Winchester white box and show up.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's basically no disadvantage to it, or there's no disadvantage to showing up with like a mil-spec AR that prints, 3 MOA with your ammo, because the targets are 8 MOA. So 8 MOA is a key point, like a key size, because it allows for a clay shot at 50 yards. It allows for an 8-inch plate at 100 yards and a 6-inch plate at 75, or like I've used a lot of 6-inch squares between like 60 and 75 at the matches that we've done out in southern Utah. And that's been like the challenging target of the match. Doable with the red dot. For some people, depending on vision, it's like easier with the magnifier, but the entire match is definitely doable with the red dot. So that's another thing that I wanted to make it more accessible.
Okay, so like as I'm reading it, it basically reads like practical is like if you were looking at like a 3-gun match, it would be like duty or patrol or some other type of simulated division where it has to be a realistic rifle you'd actually use for real things, and your handgun has to be like a realistic handgun you would actually carry, which red dot's fine.
Right.
And then, like competition is just open division, have fun. So
yes, except we're not in the 2-gun league specifically. Bipods and bags are specifically banned, and that goes back to accessibility as well. It's not the same in 3-gun if we're using PCSL for 3-gun format. That's like a true open division, but like I don't think it's practical. I don't know if you guys like put a kneeling bipod on your gun for the the 3 shots in the match that are 75 yard steel, and then detach it and leave it in the desert. Like, so I wanted people to not think that they needed one of those.
Competitive division as well. No bipods or bags.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like different from open in that respect alone. But I can go over the division differences. Practical is actually not anything I've seen so much in 3-gun. Yeah. So again, keep in mind the target engagement and what was the other thing I said? I don't know. Anyway, so competition division, like open minor handgun. You can use the gas. You can have frame mounted optics. You can have the comp porting, whatever. 170 millimeter mags, just like everyone's used to. And then the rifle is open, just like 3-gun normally. So practical is the interesting one. So I really didn't want it to be like TAC Ops and limited, where the rifle's identical, except for the magnification on the optic. So the rule's kind of hard to define for the muzzle brake, but once you kind of see what's allowed and what's not allowed, it becomes much more clear, I think. So like the only difference is basically optics are available for both divisions. You can have slide ride dots on your pistol, multiple offset dots, whatever you want, LPVO plus offset, red dot plus magnifier on your practical carbine. The key differences for practical are you're going to load your mags to 30+1, so like you're using standard mags. You can have a base pad on it if you want. That's just the capacity that you're loading to. And then there's no dedicated muzzle brakes. So, like SJC Rolling Titan or like any of the 1,000 that are out there for 3-gun, what everyone thinks of if they think of a brake, those are specifically not allowed. And I understand that some people run them on their work setups, but in order to make a competitively different division, I think it's very interesting to remove that because it forces the shooter to have slightly better recoil management. And then the other key difference that it's exactly the same point is that your full carry group has to be full mast, not like full auto M16, but just your standard full mast bullet carrier group, or if you're not shooting an AR pattern, basically factory bullet carrier group, not lightened or anything.
So basically, you're saying don't show up with a JP and shoot in practical because you're going to be told to go to competition.
Right, and the awesome thing is that these are not like these divisions overlap on the Venn diagram, or like one completely fits into the other. So you can only be bumped up, and that's a key design feature that I wanted. I don't want to have like an USPSA, limited 10 and single stack over here and revolver over here. Like the divisions stack into each other. So if you wanted to move up, you could add things to your gun. If you wanted to go down and shoot a more simpler division, you could remove things from your gun, but you would always be within that area. Unless, of course, your muzzle device is pin and welded, but that's a different story.
I like it. No, you mentioned a one gun league. So I know a bunch of guys that don't like shooting pistols, but they like shooting rifles. And I know a bunch of guys, me personally, I don't really care to shoot a rifle. Like I'll shoot a rifle once a year and be happy. I'm like way more of a pistol guy. And even then I'm a production guy. So I like low cap and irons a lot. So in your one gun league, are you thinking it's a rifle only thing, pistol only thing? Are we going to have rifle divisions within if it's a rifle thing? Are we going to have USPSA like divisions within if it's a pistol thing? So tell me about that one gun thing.
So the one gun is designed as like this is really the competitor to USPSA as people know it, I guess. But I just want to have this as an official like top down option for local clubs to run because I know there's a ton of interest for it. But I like that you're a production guy because you're the customer that I'm scared of the most.
Great,
because
I get that a lot.
So the approach that I'm kind of taking to divisions is more hands off, less specifically banning things, and in my view, like. I see a Shadow 2 that's, especially if you don't have to start double action, which you don't. I see a Shadow 2 as much, much closer to a 2011 than say, like, a stock Glock 17 or something. So
right.
I'm not very interested in separating out double single guns from 2011s, especially, like, there's more factory 2011s that are available now. You're just going to see them more. So what do you think of that? And so the division, take competition and practical, the handgun rules. So if you're from USPSA, you can think of competition division as open minor. It's
right.
or just open. There's no power factor, so you're probably just going to run 9 minor. And then practical division, you can think of as limited optics. So right. Basically what the rumor was that USPSA was going to announce. So your limited gun in 9 doesn't have to be 40, obviously, for major, with a slide optic.
So question on the magazines for that. With the magazines for that, does that mean like limited is like your top capacity is like 17, or does that mean like
140 millimeter, 10?
Right? Right now, practical is written as 145, which was kind of just, I'm just going to throw this number in there to account for the slightly oversized base pads. That's something I'm open to looking at as it becomes a one gun division. It's hard to say. I want 2 gun and the 1 gun to be extremely similar. But yeah, essentially exactly limited, like 140.
So I just sent go ahead transfer.
I'm just thinking out loud on this. What if instead of like an actual measurement, it was just like, it must be a flush fitting magazine with no extensions? Right?
I don't like that because a lot of people run extensions. Like this is kind of the like modified division, if you will. Like there is a third one that I want to talk about. This is kind of like every modification that you want to make to your gun is good to go, except utilizing the gas for recoil control and frame mounting an optic, which is not practical. So and in ultra long magazines, right, 170 mil. So aside from those things, this is kind of a semi open division that's for practical guns.
Yeah, transfer, just for your reference, the 141 millimeter is usually a +4 base pad. That's usually what it equates to.
Okay, that's not too bad then.
Yeah. I just sent a post from Competition Shooting Analytics, and he proposed some new divisions that I think would fit very good, and actually fit exactly what we were just saying. But low cap irons is merge production, single stack, limited 10 into a single division. Major is limited to 8 rounds, minor limited to 10. Flared mag wells allowed. DA shooters have the option to start hammered decocked or cocked with the safety engaged. So that's literally exactly what we just said. But I was talking to Ben earlier about 40 cal, and you were mentioning that like it's all minor. However, there's a ton of dudes that have invested a ton of money into 38, 40 cal guns and all that. Do we just tell them to fuck off and they don't get to use their gun anymore
You're
and
talking
they don't
about
score anymore?
specifically USPSA people?
Well, yeah. I mean, because they want to score major, so they bought
Right.
a gun that shoots more expensive ammo. They bought reloading equipment. I fear that they will be turned off to PCS when they see that 40 is not major; it's still minor. I don't want to shoot this because I've invested all this money into this gun and this ammo. So why would I shoot this if I'm not actually getting any advantage out of it?
Then they're 40 line.
I think that point, like it, while it matters somewhat, it's just such a low factor for people to decide if they're going to participate or not. Like, how many guys that have expensive limited or open guns do you know that do not have a carry optics gun set up?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So that's kind of the angle that I look at it. Like, and back to the beginning too. Like, this is not a league designed for USPSA shooters as an alternative to USPSA. This is designed as like a future vision of what like a non-restrictive but very accessible league can be in the future to the entire gun community at large. And the small group of guys that have invested in expensive guns like that, like, they love equipment. They're going to love trying something new and shooting other stuff too. And they have the money to do it, clearly.
No, that's a good point.
I would like to talk with the power factor thing. That is actually like, that was a thing that made USPSA not accessible to me, in a sense of like, I don't even fucking care about this. I don't want to learn it. Fuck it, whatever. Like, not really interested, right? So if it's already, we throw it out the window and I don't fucking care, that's great. If you've invested in 40, you're still going to show up with the gun that you've invested all the money in to go shoot, right? Like, it's not like you're not going to bring it. And then you're going to go try something else. But you'll show up with the gun you shot at USPSA with the whole time and go try it because you've already got all the 40 loaded. So you're going to go.
Right. And you'll probably do perfectly fine, like exactly the same placement that you do at USPSA. Like, and there's not really going to be, an extra, there might be one extra reload here or there depending on the stage. But that's just what happens. You try a new sport and you see what the division's, what the optimal equipment is, and you decide if you want to invest in it or not.
How do you feel about a league that's just rifle, like just AR pattern, or not necessarily AR pattern, but just like a USPSA, but with a rifle? Because I know a lot of guys that don't like shooting pistols.
Only bullpups, though. Only bullpups.
No.
I was super excited about it at first, and I think this may be something that just takes a little longer after we get the foundation set up. So, like, this whole process has to be done in steps, and it's probably going to take me the better part of this decade to even get it to a point where we can expand it into all these other areas that make sense. But the exposure that I'm getting now is more from the competitive side. Obviously, that's where people know me. That's where kind of the drama is causing people to look elsewhere. And the guys over there, like, they want 2-gun or nothing. Like, we did a carbine only championship, and I've been to different ones run by totally different groups before, like the Noveski series. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one, but happened like 2018 and 19. Mm-hmm. It was a hit factor scored rifle match where everything was 100 yards and in with challenging shots, like smaller steel out at 100. And there was bracing. There was, they did one event at VIR where they had a shoot house and like that big tower that you climb up. And like, in my opinion, some of the most fun shooting and practical shooting that you could ever get. But again, it was based off like 3-gun divisions, so it really catered more to the competitive crowd. And then it died. And after 2019, there was like some drama with strategic match designs, but yeah, after that, it just never came back, and there was nothing that took its place. Earlier this year, we ran in March a carbine championship under PCSL rules, and I thought the match was terrific. I got to shoot it like as a match director, and everyone who showed up had a lot of fun, I think. But people just wanted the two gun. Like that was the number one request I had. It was like, why didn't you just make this a March two gun match? Which is what we're doing next year. So I think the demand could be there. But what do you guys think about that?
I saw that you were doing PCC and carbine with your rule set, and also with your like hands-off approach. I mean, there's nothing that would stop. If I want to match direct stuff locally, there's nothing that would stop me from running a rifle-only match, right? Like USPSA
Yeah,
does,
exactly.
Production only or PCC only matches.
That's probably one good thing to mention. Like here is that the rule set, you can find it on the website pcsleague.com. But my approach to this is like, I don't want your affiliation fees. I don't want anything. I just want to provide this platform for people to take and adapt to their customers. So we're going to run it in the most logical, common sense way that we can figure out how to make, like just going to 3 pillars, like balancing everything, maximizing everything. But at your club level, please take and adapt this and make it suit your customer base. Like today I shot the North Texas Open at Mission 160 near Dallas, and these guys are trying out a local PCSL match with PCC Open only as the carbine because their range doesn't allow 223. The berms are kind of low and there's like houses everywhere. So it's unfortunate that they don't have 223, but it's still going to be an amazing 2-gun match. So basically their handguns going to be in competition or practical, and then you're just going to shoot a PCC as your carbine. And that's what works for their customers. And maybe you're a club that has a ton of 22 participation. So you want to actually like not worry about falling steel, or even be able to shoot steel up close, like that could be cool for 22. So just take and try it and like use it at your club and reach out to me for guidance. And yeah, it's pretty much just me doing everything right now. So but don't feel bad about reaching out because I'm like basically what people need from me as far as information goes helps guide me in order to prioritize like what help for clubs I get out first, because that's really what I'm focused on now. Not so much running the best majors, although I am doing that for sure. But I'm kind of shifting my focus really to get this going around the country so that everyone can participate in it, not just if you can make it out to St. George in the fall or spring.
Yeah, because I would like to start doing that on a local level, like here in Lexington. That's like my dream is to start match directing these. So I'm glad to have you on here.
Nice, cool.
One of the questions I have with that is, I think even if you just, I like what you're saying with the idea of just build a rule set and let people use it, right? And as long as they like syndicate with you enough to keep it worth your time to help them and use your targets, right? At that point, you're happy and people can just kind of use it as they want. Like, if you look at a lot of the other single gun matches, right? Like, the first one that popped in my head after the Noveski was the Sons of Liberty Gunworks carbine series that they run every year with Big Tex Outdoors. Because that one's been big, right? And there's also like Red October, the AK match, like AK only, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you have a rule set like that you can use and you can get people to say like, hey, like I wrote up a rule set. If you guys want to use it, here it is. And they may use it, they may not. But you can actually have something. So if it's like, hey, this guy in Wyoming wants to run a carbine only match. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, like, it's funny you mentioned Red October because, Brian had a target design which was the original inspiration for the K-Zone target. His original design was like based around making it as cheap as possible. So he kind of like cut off the bottom of the target and wanted like a very small upper body, like easily, mass produced, easily replaced and everything. And then so I took that design and like adapted it for the K-Zone target. So Brian Nelson like created the Red October AK series as well as Hard as Hell. And we're working together on Hard as Hell this year. And also for Red October, he's running PCSL targets exclusively, which he did last year too. And at Hard as Hell, we're running 3-gun under time plus scoring. So it will be 2 anywhere, except you can't get lucky A zones anymore. The one shot neutralize is going to be the K, just like the head box used to be, like a Bravo in USPSA targets, I guess, for multi-gun. So it basically makes multi-gunners like, yeah, I like it a lot better for multi-gun and time plus.
I know me and Ethan had some discussion about the K-zone targets. I really like it from the night matches, running gun stuff I've run. It's been the lucky A thing. I really like the economic payoff of do you just shoot them each once or do you double tap? I feel like it ends up in a lot of 10-point only targets with that system. But how big is the K-zone? Can you talk about that a little bit? What you've seen guys running in your championship series and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like take your upper credit card and then taper it down to the neck. Essentially, there's another angle in there. So the widest part of the K zone is basically the upper credit card of the current metric target, and it's an inch in from both sides. So it's 4 inches wide at the top. Then it goes down straight a little bit, tapers in, then goes down straight to a smaller 2.5-inch portion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's big enough that it's easier to hit than the credit card for sure. If you're close and you have good trigger control, you can guarantee those hits pretty quickly. But then at the same time, keep in mind that rifle paper, we're pushing out at these matches too. So at some point, you're not going to be able to guarantee those K-zone hits. But I really like how the target interacts with modern studies on law enforcement training and engagements and military and everything, and where people are starting to realize that for lethality, a headshot is actually your answer. You cannot guarantee that the threat's neutralized, even if you deliver lethal hits to a target. They're still going to be in the fight as they die, which is one of the big reasons that Brian pioneered the target. And I don't have any kind of background. I'm just a civilian, competitive shooter hobbyist. But I really like how this has the potential to affect that whole community of professionals too. And what it really does is it'll make people experiment at the matches. We have no idea what's optimal. Even with the majors that we've run so far, I have guys out there that just enjoy the K zone. There's one guy, Patrick, who shoots out of Cedar City, and that's his thing. He just every local match, every major match, he loves just only shooting Ks. He's like, this is what I'll do, and it's awesome. And he doesn't take much extra time to do it, and he's not wasting ammo and getting a lot of hits. Obviously, it doesn't work out all the time, so probably not the most optimal strategy for placement at the highest level. But then definitely shooting 2 alpha on everything, especially if you have a group of targets up close where you can just put 4 Ks deliberately, it's probably going to be better to guarantee those points, especially if you have the skills to do it quickly. So I'm really excited to see where that helps push the skill ceiling and what actually ends up being optimal. Because we definitely haven't found a balance yet. As the sport grows, it's going to be cool.
So just real quick, K is 10, A is 5, C is 3,
it's
and
hit
D
factor
is 1.
Exactly the same. So it's hit factor minor, exactly the same, but the K zone is scored as 2 alpha, so that you don't need that second hit to neutralize, no penalty. So
And
like you said,
from the competitive side, not thinking of that as a face, but thinking of it just a scoring zone, that is going to require if I'm just trying to hit the K on purpose and just once, that's going to require me to one, confirm my sights a little bit more, and 2, what am I trying? What's the word, Ben? What is the thing where you know where your shot goes when you press the trigger? Good Lord, shot. Fuck, man, that just escaped me entirely. That's going to require better shot calling. Or I'm just gonna hit an A and then accidentally hit a K, and then I'll not have needed to hit that A in the first place. Or I'll hit a K, think it was an A, and then hit another K, I guess. So that's
The
interesting.
C, the C is smaller than a IPSC C, right? Or a USPSA C.
Yeah, so
Because the entire thing sort
the
of.
current version of the target is designed around the turtle target, so the IPSC Classic target.
Love those.
You,
Love those.
you take the A zone, and instead of tapering it up, you just go straight up to the head. So it's like a 6-inch wide rectangle at the top, but it still tapers at the bottom. And then you cut out the shoulders. And wherever the C and D zones line up, that's where they are now. And the K zone is inserted into the head. There will be an update at some point when I switch to get these targets more mass produced and more available. Right now, they're only available through me because my order volume wasn't enough to justify getting a 3PL to distribute everything yet. So, but it's picked up like crazy in the last few weeks. Like I'm overwhelmed with that. So, the slight dimensional changes we're going to do is just add an inch to the overall height and subtract a 1/4 inch from the width to make it fit exactly in a nice box.
Now, if you
Yeah.
if you can think of like the guys that are winning your matches are obviously hitting A's and K's. The middle of the road people, are they hitting like low left C's and D's and low right C's and D's? I'm curious because
Yes.
yeah, that's what I thought. Because the IPSC target is kind of designed to where it's cut off where you're going to hit those deltas or charlies on the USPSA target, but it's like cut off where people normally miss. So I'm guessing most of your C's and D's are low left and low right.
Yeah, and if you're shooting like dead center of the target, the perception's hard because like without the shoulders, it kind of looks like the center is a little lower than center actually. So it's easy to get sucked into that like chunky C zone in the middle. So you really have to be deliberate with where you're aiming here, and if you line it up against like a lethality target or whatever, like it works way better. I cannot stand how big the freaking D zone is on USPSA targets. And if you guys like get some K zones and shoot them for a little bit and then go back to USPSA, you're going to be like, what the hell is all this down here? Like they really are just lucky misses. And in order to make an interesting stage, in a lot of cases, you have to hardcover the shit out of everything, like put slants everywhere or do like upper half hardcovers because the targets are just so huge that unless you can put them at like 15, 20 yards, you're not really challenging the ratio of accuracy that I think practical shooting sport should. So one of the huge benefits of the K zone targets is that as a match director, you don't need to worry about hardcover and no shoots and partials so much to make the stages interesting because scoring maximum points requires a lot more precision and deliberation than just throwing up a bunch of metric targets. Because you do have the risk reward now, like with the shoulders cut out on either side of the K zone is all mic area. It's
Right.
not a tiny sliver of C and D that'll catch bullets. So if you're trying to get those Ks, you stray away from the center of the A zone and you have much more risk. And then if you want to just get safer A's where an imprecise shot will land in Charlie, you're not really going to get the lucky K hits. So I think the target, like, it looked like a good idea. We made it, it wasn't such a huge cost initially, but when I got them and like we used them for the first match, I was blown away by how much better they were in person than like how they performed at the match. Like just exceeded everything I hoped they would be.
I like them. I'm gonna get some from you for sure and try.
Yeah,
I
I'll
need to
send
pick
them
up
over.
some.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about getting BGSL, just a big pack of them, so you can take some home and set up a match soon. I also, you were talking about the carryover, and I mean, I think something that we haven't really discussed really yet, aside from the beginning, is like that carryover to the tactical community. I mean, thigh straps, like that's something ridiculous. Not allowing suppressors, not allowing braced firearms. I mean, that's stuff that has great carryover. And also, just when we're talking about the target, the fact that the neck shots are C's. I mean, I've always thought that about USPSA targets, but I think those are all things
Yeah, that's
really
another thing. Off like a dead center headshot, it's a 1/4 inch low. is penalized 40% of your in minor. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's always made a lot of sense.
I like the idea of being able to have some carryover for guys, and I think this is kind of one of those things that if more clubs can start carrying PCSL, we're going to start seeing the actual value of this, because how many dudes out there that are like 21 to like between 21 and 30 who have like their first handgun and watch like everything from Grand Thumb and TRX Arms and all that shit, and they want a venue to go shoot at where they can be around like-minded people that they can actually enjoy shooting with. Just the simple fact of that is, I think, something that is entirely underserved. And if USPSA wanted to try to capitalize on some of it, they could try some of it. But I think this is a lot more generally accessible, and it's like to the tactically minded young gun dude. And that's huge.
Because I have so many buddies that have like asked me, they're like, "Hey man, how can I shoot a rifle competitively?" And I'm like, they see me shooting USPSA, and they're like, "Oh, how can I do that?" And I'm like, "Well, there's this dude Max, national champ, PCC, But the brutal reality is, people don't want to drop $1,200, $1,500 on a 16-inch PCC when they haven't even tried.
Yeah, it's so stupid. I can't believe that they don't allow like pistol braced ARs in PCC still. It just makes no sense.
Like, I have to go pay $200 for a tax stamp to go shoot PCC with an actually reasonably barrel-length PCC. Like, what?
Yeah, well, I mean, the solution is you just weld a piece of metal on the front that literally does jack shit for you, except hits walls every time you swing it around.
Yeah, or you just use a 16-inch barrel. Like, what? Why am I doing this?
Yeah, which is worse a lot of the time because you run out of powder and you start slowing down.
Yeah, and so I think a thing that I had on the point with the single gun point for the handgun side, you have the practical and the competition, and you said you wanted to possibly do a third division.
Yeah, so this is what I want to share with you guys here tonight. So I've just been talking about it with a few people, but the third one, you can probably guess what it is. I'm thinking just calling it factory division. I know that name's been used a lot, but I think it makes sense here. So factory division will be iron sights only. Otherwise,
yes,
limited rules, but either 15+1 or 17+1. Kind of like production is limited to 10+1. So it's just any factory handgun you get. I don't give a shit if it's a revolver, if it's a single stack, what caliber it is. You got it out of the box. You use the standard mags that come with it. You load them to an equivalent, capacity that everyone who buys a full-size handgun can run, and you just run your iron sights, and that's it. It could be a staccato.
I like it.
I like that. Because
that aligns with your letting people run their. I always see people, even at running guns, I think guys show up with M1 Garands and stuff. That lets people run the mean guns and the iron sight old stuff and be competitive in iron sight division. That's freaking awesome.
So let me propose something that will resolve our conversation about major. So 10 millimeter bullet diameter and over, you're limited to 10 rounds in your mag. 9 millimeter is 15 rounds in your mag.
So why do you want to add major? And when you answer this, think about the logistics and extra work that goes into it as well.
That's a
what does major bring competitively?
You already answered this question earlier, so I don't know why I'm arguing the point. But just the guys that want to shoot 40 and 45, and if they have like a 1911 or whatever, like the guys that have bought those
the guys that are pre-invested
purpose,
already,
right? Yeah, but you already said they're going to just shoot whatever, and you're probably.
But
right.
I think there's a much better argument for it. I mean, like that's a super legit argument too. But I think for me, like my personality and like the way that I'm approaching this league, the argument that bothers me the most about it, and this is why I said like you're going to be my like the scariest customer of the league, but like I think it's really interesting from a scoring perspective to have some kind of division where you do have real recoil. And my answer to that is like, yeah, that's super interesting, and I want like I really want that to be viable, but I don't see a way to fit it in with the rest of the frame of what I'm trying to do. And
No,
I don't think splitting everything up. The problem is like you just can't. It turns into USPSA where you must shoot this caliber in a division. But no, you had a thing where if you're shooting major, you're limited, right? I think then it turns into like single stack where like it's kind of just
required.
going all in one direction, right? Like everyone shoots single stack 10 mil or 10 round 9mm.
Or they're going to just show up with 1911s, or they're going to show up with like a Glock 21 with the 10 loaded 10 rounds. Like that's what they're going to do.
No, yeah, you're right. Because in limited, limited is basically 40. Like if you're not shooting 40 in limited, you're not gonna win the majors and shit. Like,
well, I do have a division idea if you're interested in it. If you had one called Pocket Rocket, which the entire idea is you have to have something that is actually like the size of like a Glock 43 or a P365, like an actual small gun that you're going to show up with and you're going to actually carry every day. That's what you're competing with.
So I have two extra divisions that I haven't like really talked to many people about, but I did attend IDPA Nationals, not to shoot, but to support Lynn. So it's so funny to me. IDPA is like the biggest mismatch that you could possibly imagine between good idea and poor execution. So, but it kind of inspired me. So, I'd like to do, in addition to competition, practical, and factory, I'd like to do 2 divisions. One is directly from IDPA, CCP, compact carry pistol. And then one is MCP, micro carry pistol. And they have to be shot from IWB.
Interesting.
I like that.
I like that.
I think people
like that a lot.
And they both have boxes.
I like it.
And it's like 15+1 and then 10+1. Because anyone can buy shield mags for their Glock.
Yeah. So I had 2 slight questions regarding like your competitive equity stuff and especially as you get towards majors and like, seeing what people are running in terms of the meta. PCC. So I know you said you want a place where people would run 223s. I want a place where I can run 223s. Is you're not running the risk with allowing PCCs to compete in those divisions that a PCC would be mostly the meta, especially inside of 200 yards?
With practical division, which is of course designed like around rifles that have actual like work gun recoil impulses.
Mm-hmm.
The first year we saw that like JP5 and MPX have big advantages in the recoil department.
Mm-hmm.
So after the first year, we moved it from practical division. Shooting a PCC just puts you in competition. So you're going up against a 3-gun rifle setup. So that was Do you think that puts you in an advantage over a 3-gun rifle?
Or I should even consider that more handguns. Like people just running super light ass handguns.
I think, that is a concern, but I think it's more a perceived advantage than a real advantage. You can load, like I think once you get to a certain point, and honestly, like 125 is low enough that if you load a gamer round, it's not really that much different, I think. From going all the way down to 100, and then you run into reliability issues. And if you're shooting out in St. George dust, a speck of dust is going to slow your slide down enough to cause you to lose the match.
Yeah, and to be devil's advocate, if I took a 22 or 90 power factor 9mm out to CO Nats, I still wouldn't win. I think it's not gonna make a big enough difference.
Yeah, and like it would be super interesting to test that, like throw a week of training and that ammo in a top shooter's hands and have him shoot the match twice. But
I mean, that kind of did happen at CO Nats. That
with
SIG
Max
ammo
Fischel.
that registered under power. We kind of
Did you
did
guys
this.
see how, like, the funniest thing to me was if he chose to reweigh or shoot the rest of his ammo, and he chose to shoot the rest of it, and like how awesome the standard deviation was. It was like every single round was within like 2 or 3 feet per second, and they were
Jesus.
like 124.9. It was like the perfect subminor load. Like,
Oh my
you're not
gosh.
getting lucky at all with anything that's like, oh, that was a lucky 10 FPS higher or anything like that.
Thanks, SIG, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, he didn't win though, so I guess, I guess we
Yeah.
did that experiment. That was funny. I like what SIG is doing for USPSA as a whole. Did you say, just meta talk here real quick? Did you say you had to leave at 10, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay. What's next, guys? What are we going to talk about next?
Sorry, somebody else is going to go. I personally wanted to talk, since I'm the guy that's interested in kind of starting to MD some local ones. What are you seeing? I know that some other folks are running some locals. I kind of had envisioned in my head, like, some short hoser stages, some more long range technical stuff, some more rifle heavy versus pistol heavy stages. What are you looking like at breakdown on those type of things?
So that's one of the things that I really want to leave up to individual match directors. Like, at some point, I want to release a best practices guide, and obviously a lot of demo stages. Like, I've been running some local matches that are 4 stages, all of them 2-gun, at SUPS, which is also in St. George, Utah. Much smaller bays there though, since the reconstruction. So a lot of times, even 10-yard wide by like 20 yards deep bays, so super small, and then some bigger than that. But I like to do just a good mix of close and far shots on the same stage to mix it up, and then reuse a lot of the shooting area, especially if you have a small bay. But I would recommend 4 stages for a local match if you're starting out. I find that's roughly equivalent to like a smallish 6-stage USPSA match,
Okay.
especially if all of them are 2-gun.
I was wondering what your shooter turnaround time was. And I say this, I'm kind of in a bad position to try to be match directing because I've never shot multi-gun, don't want to get into 3-gun, and there's nothing else really around here. But what's like I know USPSA is 2 to 3 minutes per shooter.
Let me see. I forget the number off the top of my head, but at one of our major matches where we had a relatively long kind of memory stage that was a side to side with a lot of angles and stuff, and we were getting like between 5 and 6 minutes turnaround time. Wait, is that right? No, because the whole squad finished in under an hour, and they were like 14 shooters, so it couldn't have been that much. Right? Basically, like, the difference when you're scoring more targets, even though it's hit factor and not time plus. So a lot of people are scared of the hit factor when it comes to 2-gun, but really, like, it becomes a nightmare in 3-gun. I think when you have that many targets in the shotgun to deal with and everything. But turnaround times are roughly the same as like a bigger USPSA stage. So when you have like 4, you can think of it as like 4 big USPSA stages in the match instead of like 6 medium-sized ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you add maybe like 20 seconds to the shooting because you add, the other gun, and then maybe a minute more to reset. And it's just like taping maybe 10 more targets.
And I was going to say I've been thinking about that K target. We talked about that already, but I kept coming up with like slight oppositions in my mind, like aren't a lot of them 10-point targets since you have the K for an accidental 1 and 2 ace. But that also, if that is true, that speeds up scoring. You just have 2.
Right. And I wish Practice Score, like, they tried to do a specific K-Zone mode for our first major match, and it worked all the way up until final upload, and they had to like work some magic behind the scenes to get scores up in time. And since then, like practice score development has been pretty quiet because they're working with they're kind of like revamping the whole thing and doing the scoring tech rebrand, working with the military and everything. So I don't know if that's ever going to come out in any reasonable time coming up here. So basically what we do is use hit factor scoring. And like you said, you can call kilo, which is kind of fun because it's a new zone, or you can just say 2 alpha and you just enter it just like that.
Yeah.
I do hope they at some point free up some manpower to like just finalize that and make sure the bugs are worked out. That would be really
I think
nice.
that's probably just going to have to come with like them actually getting enough people, like demanding to actually shoot in this new league, to then say, okay, we have the demand, we actually have to answer this question. And I think that kind of gets into like my next step of it is like, this is clearly catered for the younger brand of gun guys. This is something that is by guys like us, for guys like us. We get this. Like, you're definitely one of the dudes that we all like. Oh yeah, like Max is definitely saying stuff that we all agree with. We all like this. Where do you see the big challenges with actually getting to the next step? As far as like, all right, like I have this. It's a thing that I'm doing in Utah. There's a couple places that are interested in doing it. How do you get to the next big leap?
So I'm at a point now where the biggest challenge for me is like time and manpower. I wish I could hire like 2 people that shared my vision super closely, and like obviously I don't have it. It sucks because the league needs to grow in order to have income to hire people, and it's not going to grow fast enough, without hiring people in the first place. So it's kind of tough, but luckily I don't have the problem of lack of demand. Like it's super frustrating because the demand's there and I can't like work fast enough to meet it. So that's the huge struggle right now. I am talking to people about bringing them on for some extra help, but it's very hard because, I mean, obviously, like giving responsibilities to someone who doesn't share the same vision for everything could just like stifle the league even more.
And I really appreciate you like not wanting to charge affiliation fees and stuff, and not wanting to turn into what USPSA has. But I do got to say, my basic economic background has to tell me if your demand's there and you can't put supply, you might want to start considering, like, is it worth charging people a very small administrative fee or something? That's just my 2 cents.
I think
do that.
Unfortunately, I think you're going to have to go to that point at some level.
So I really don't want to offer a membership unless I offer some value. And the first way that I want to do that is by basically creating a media company that will like not only offer content through the year, like, this and that, whatever, like here's a PCSL Pro with like training tips. That's like kind of the filler stuff. But I want to do like a real show that's high production value, that's subscription based. So like your subscription to PCSL, the standard membership, like gets you access to this, not pay-per-view, but whatever, like Netflix subscription, $100 a year or $10 a month or something. And
like almost like a Patreon kind of thing, right? Or like any sort of like behind a paywall, but there's video content that is specifically for the people that participate in PCSL and want to do more stuff around it.
Yeah, and I don't give a shit too much about people like sharing it with their friends or whatever. Like, this is for people who want to support the league, but we're going to give something back in the form of like entertainment and content. And I don't know if you guys super watching on YouTube. The first show that was around across the U.S. Because like when he joined team like uh, and like, there's a bunch of new drivers now, but that show can be like 1-to-1 to shooting, because shooting is so much like rally with say different times and your overall score depends on all your stages set up. And everyone shoots one at a time. So logistically, it's like a copy paste to that format, and it's really exciting. It's well done, well written. I recommend if you guys are into that stuff or just curious about like Subaru Launch Control on YouTube, just like watch episodes every 20 minutes each. So I'd like to have like multi-episode series following a bunch of major events over the year, and just make that the bread and butter of the content. And yeah, that way like you can watch and get into it even if you're not able to make it out, or just shoot it at club level or something. And that's like my first idea for raising a bunch of money. It's going to take high initial investment, but I think now's the time to do it because, yeah, the demand's here, obviously.
And I feel like the opportunity is even bigger.
I think the demand's been here for a while, and I think you're just answering the call. Like, there's a lot of people that have been interested in the idea of doing something like this and trying to square peg in a round hole this whole thing for a while, and what you're offering is an actual answer. That's what something like guys like me, that's what I've been looking for. Because most of the matches I've shot were 3-gun, but the local 3-gun match to us would do a 2-gun division. So me and all of my buddies that used to work at the gun shop with me, we would all go shoot in 2-gun division, which is not the best answer, but it's the answer we had because none of us wanted to go shoot shotguns.
Right.
And so they were reasonably cool about like, you didn't have to show up with like, they weren't too picky on like what we had for handguns as far as, like optics and shit on the slide. They didn't really give a shit if we were using braced ARs, like they didn't care. But generally speaking, it was like I'm shooting a 3-gun match, and then it's not designed for what I am actually using. So God forbid you show up to what's the shotgun stage, and it's actually just a pistol-only stage. And now you're shooting like a steel target from like 5 yards away, and people are catching ricochets.
And it's just so not fun. Like it's just stand here and like shoot 8 steel plates and then run over here. It's like, yeah, that solution doesn't work. I know that.
Yeah.
I've participated in that. Yeah, it's so boring.
I'll say that the match that I was at least tried to make it interesting because they only had like 50-yard bays to work with, so they had to actually do interesting stage design because they only had a limited amount of space to work with. But still, it's working within a compromise, and I think that what PCSL brings is something entirely better suited for this. Oh, hey, 7-7, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fucking great, dude. How are you doing?
We're doing great. Just talking with Max here about PCSL.
That's awesome. I just did really poorly on a midterm, went to a bonfire. Having an okay night.
So,
welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. So I guess the question when it comes to launching PSCSL into the larger sphere of gun people, do you think actually trying to get some coverage from some people that carry some weight in the space is going to help you?
Yeah, definitely.
Or
we're doing pretty good on that, I think. But
I mean, you're doing good, but like you're known to people who know about the USPSA drama that has been happening and also have been clued into competition shooting. But like, if you let's just spitball an idea. If you could figure out how to get on like T-Rex Arms YouTube channel or Garantham's channel and actually show how you run a match, right? And then suddenly people are like, this is great. I want to go shoot this because they can see what you have actually kind of created for people to go compete in. Like that would be, if I'm thinking of like what's the best strategy, like if you could get on one of these two channels, like people would be all in, I think.
So, did you know Lucas was out at the first event?
I did not.
So, yeah, like he sponsored it as a staff sponsor and everything. It was super helpful, and of course, did the Lucas thing where last minute he's got like work stuff, so didn't want to shoot or didn't have time to shoot. I guess. Lucas is super interesting. I think like what he does for the gun community is awesome. The T-Rex Arms brand is amazing. The media like giant within the firearm space that he's created is great. And yeah, like he was super into it as well. But I think we don't match up very well because he's very like he has a big ego, obviously, and he wants to do things like he wants to be the decision maker, and so do I.
He has his vision for things. I think is
right.
The way I would say it is like he's got a very distinct vision of what he wants to do, and when it's your show, like maybe it doesn't quite fit as well as he would like it to be with what he would want the match to be.
Yeah, I think we're pretty aligned on like what we'd like to see in the matches. Like a few key differences here and there, maybe, but after that first event, basically, like what I kind of came to that understanding that it wasn't really going to work as like T-Rex Arms just being there for media exposure. So
Okay.
I kind of had to make a decision with him, like, and I just told him like, this is something that I'd like to do and maintain like the most control of. And I mean, like I said, he's got a big ego. Like obviously, you guys can all see that and know that. So there are like a few things that happened during the match, like no drama, no nothing. Like I have a lot of respect for Lucas, but just that kind of turned me off to basically like handing the idea over or like even doing a like equal partnership. Like I would rather maintain control of like the creative part of it, if that makes sense. So, like I think
that does make sense because you don't want to be the guy that more or less because he's the big name. You don't want to ride the coattails of somebody else on your own project. That doesn't feel good.
Right, and I think he's got the potential to do like if he wanted to start a 2-gun league, obviously, like he could do it in a second. I think it comes down to like what his vision is of it, coming from his background versus my vision of what it could be, like coming from a competitive background, and we slightly disagree in like the end goal, maybe.
Like, is he wanting it? He's wanting like a more combative oriented direction, and like you're just trying to have like a purist, fun competition environment.
So probably a good example is one of the things that he mentioned specifically was a like a blind shoot house chameleon target stage. So you guys can like imagine what that means, and then my approach to it is like almost the complete opposite. Is like strip everything down to pure marksmanship execution with the two most ubiquitous platforms that everyone uses. Because ultimately I see it as like a sport that is applicable to everyone in the gun community, from people who are professionals in the military, law enforcement, to hobbyists, civilians, or just people looking for something fun to do like on the weekends with their family or whatever. And from his perspective, I think it's like, yeah, it's like just going along with his brand and all the content he's released so far. So
he like a timed training venue is what he wants, and you want a pure match for the sake of a like marksmanship based match, and that maybe doesn't mesh well. That makes sense. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. But I mean, I think the overall the media coverage that you guys have had so far has been pretty good. I think it's just getting the word out there to people of what this is, because it provides enough to the average just hobbyist gun owner who has an AR and has a Glock 19, and he's like, I want to go shoot, but I don't want to have to deal with like going to a 3-gun match and like, do I borrow a shotgun? What do I do? Like, there needs to be some sort of a middle ground to these things.
And I don't think that, I disagree with you, but I don't think that our problem right now, as Max said, that there's plenty of demand, is that he can't supply it. I mean, I think if I could put on a match next month at BGSL, that it would fill up. I don't even think it's a participant problem. It's more of a who's putting on matches, availability of targets, availability of people to coordinate. Is that approximate, Max?
That's kind of how I feel. That's the number one thing I'm trying to address now. But the ball is rolling on everything. Like I'm doing a lot silently behind the scenes, and like obviously, you know, it's not getting posted around until the matches are actually happening, but they are starting to happen and being scheduled, and like I can kind of keep track of who's wanting to run them where, and I'm looking to like expand some major matches out of the Utah area to next year, so that like unfortunately this is super slow moving, just like or I mean, you know, in contrast to something that's super easy to get into, like a new video game or something. Like new Call of Duty comes out, everyone downloads it and everyone's playing online, you know, that night. So I think, I mean, I'd love any suggestions you guys have in terms of like speeding it up and stuff, but I'm doing what I can now. I'm probably not the most experienced with this, but I'm determined to make it happen. So.
I mean, I think it's actually you're on the right track with a lot of it, because I think it's just a matter of people actually picking up on the fact that you're there and you've set up this rule set, you've created this target, you've got everything ready to go. We just need to actually get people. If I say, hey, I'm hosting PCSL, here's what the match is, right? And even if you just say, like, hey, PCSL 2-gun match, what's this? And people are on practice score and can find it, they're going to show up, right? People will show up if you put that out at a event. People are going to do it. Yeah. It's a matter of, I think in general, it's just a matter of making connections with people that run matches and people that run and organize matches, and just in general seeing what you get. Right. And like, it also, I think, is kind of a location based thing, if that makes sense. Because there's obviously people everywhere that shoot this stuff, but you have to kind of pick like a couple states that maybe have like really well known competitive shooting circuits and like have a lot of competitive shooting that happens there, and try to push that. And so you're in Utah, and Utah has a lot of competitive shooters. If you like a little bit more in Arizona, you put some in Texas, you put some in Florida, where people are shooting these matches consistently, and there's a big concentration of people who all want to shoot matches, and it comes up that, hey, this is here, I can shoot this. They will come when you make it, and you've already made it. They just need to actually, the way I would say is, you just need someone to actually organize it and hold it in the way that like the movie actually has to be showing at the theater for someone to buy the ticket and sit in the seat. Right?
Yeah, and I have to balance that too with like I feel so behind on getting, you know, info out to match directors. Like you guys were asking about like what's the best way to run them, because like if they come and like someone doesn't really understand you know what like the big vision of it is at the majors, it can be executed in like a much different way, which I guess I shouldn't worry about too much. That's probably just like the creative instinct kind of thing. And just like getting people participating in any way is good. Then they'll look into it more.
I mean, the other solution is like what you said you were just doing before you started, is go to somebody's match that they're hosting, or get some of your other guys that like when you actually can bring on staff, have someone who knows how to run these matches show up and actually like kind of oversee the process. Like, hey, like, this is what we kind of mean by this, right? So if you're going to use our targets and use our branding, like this is what we're intending, and keep that in mind. And I think when you get enough people realizing that this is this is the viable alternative we were hoping for, right? Because you're here, it's out there, we know you're making it. When enough traction starts to pick up, then I think you're gonna hit the point where you'll get a guy like Lucas Botkin, who this isn't what he wanted, right? But he sees people are shooting it and he can host it. And he's like, this isn't what I would want to do, but you know what? People will shoot it, and I can get people shooting. Like, you could get somebody like that, right? You could have people that run their own ranges that have an established credibility in the competitive world, in the training world, start hosting these matches because the demand starts filling in. And I think it's going to. It's already filling in.
Yeah, and I think really it's just like it's going to be a fast word of mouth thing once these like initial events start popping off around. Like there's already been like events scheduled in California. There's been ones that have happened in northern Utah and Arizona is being scheduled. Dallas is being scheduled. Maine just happened. So like, even though the publicity isn't there from all these guys, like the clubs are starting to do it. So,
I mean, that's the big hurdle at that point.
Yeah.
Were
And,
those guys able to fill matches?
Sorry, what?
Were the main Dallas? I'm assuming all those filled up pretty quickly. Like if participation was not a problem with those.
I think Maine was pretty good. Dallas was kind of just announced, and I'm actually going out to that one. It's the week after PCC Nationals this year. So I think we'll fill that one up. Those guys are doing 6 stages. It's like a bigger match. The one in northern Utah was great. Like a lot of those guys were, they're 4 hours away, and they didn't want to spend the money to come down and do the major championship. So one of the guys who came down and participated in our championship was like, I'm just going to put one of these on out at the local club in Salt Lake. I know a lot of people liked it there too. So like, that's going to be the pattern. I did want to talk to you guys about classifiers to finish up too, because that's obviously a sticking point. And then whatever else you want to ask about too before we get off here.
Yeah. So how would you set up? Would classifiers all be multi-gun?
So the classifiers, I've probably spent the least amount of time like fleshing out the whole idea. So I have like a basic structure that I want to get some feedback on, and I do want to keep it similar to how USPSA does it. I'll obviously need some kind of like a development team or like web developer or something, like get the data and put it into a program. But I want to do a small number of classifiers divided into 3 sections, basically based on what they test. So it's not just a random scenario where like there's easy and difficult ones, and like, oh, you can classify on this one. So like all classifier matches run this classifier because it's known to be like a lower height factor and easier to attain. So I want to divide them into like manipulations, movement, and marksmanship, and they share, like they can share aspects of each other. But like manipulations will test a lot of reloads and strong hand, weak hand, and draws and that kind of stuff. And then movement obviously tests movement, shooting on the move a little bit, like in a smaller scenario. And then marksmanship is just like shot difficulty, so that you might have like longer rifle shots, longer pistol shots, or just like no shoots, partials, that kind of stuff. And they can obviously be mixed in. And then in order to classify, you need to have like 2 scores in from each set of 3, or sorry, each of the 3 sets. So it's like a little tweak on the way that USPSA does it now. And I think it requires a lot smaller of a list that is like pretty easy to generate if I have like a week to really sit down and do it. And then, so from there, you'll have one set of those that they'll be like equivalent classifiers for both 2-gun and 1-gun. So there'll be totally separate classifications for your 2-gun and 1-gun classifier. So like basically what that allows is for someone to choose what they want to make their focus, or they can, dual class or whatever. So like say a 2-gunner wants to spend a season making 2-gun their focus. So they get classified initially with that set, that all the stages will be published, just like USPSA does it, so local matches can set it up, same yardages and targets and everything, and then submit the scores, and then we might generate high hit factors at major championships like USPSA does, or maybe just have a bunch of top shooters submit like separately, like an invitational thing. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to do that, but anyway, so once you get your initial classification, I think eventually my idea for the league is like to require a full year's or like season's worth of participation. I want people to actually go to, or have an incentive to go to, like what would be area matches or like sectionals, and then the championships every year. So I'm thinking about having like 2 major 2-gun championships and 2 major handgun championships every year. One based on the West Coast, one based on the East Coast. And then a bunch of these like area level, basically like level 3s, that are at like known ranges that can host great events, that have people running them that kind of share the same vision of what a great match would be. They'll have their own flavors, obviously. But like 8 of those going on over the year in both single gun, like the handgun division we talked about, and 2-gun. And then, so basically your scores on the classifiers slot you into like a D to A class. And then in order to get bumped up to master, you have to attend, it might just be like one sectional, or like one match that's at least bigger than a local match, and then perform well within your class. In order, like maybe you have to score top 95% or more, or 90% or more within A class as a whole. And then those people go on to become the master class. So it's like more of a reward to earn that. So these are just like the little tweaks that I'm adding to the current system. And then I want Grandmaster to actually be something special and meaningful, or it doesn't have to be called Grandmaster, but we might, or even Master in like A through D. But I want there to be a seasonally rotating group of the top 100 in each league. And in order to qualify for that, it's based on earned points from any 3 area championships, or like I won't have areas of states. Like these will just be a sanctioned like level 3 matches. So any 3 scores from those plus 1 major championship, or it may even be as low as 2 plus 1, because I do want like getting Grandmaster to be accessible, but I also want you to have to go to either of the 2 major championships in order to earn it. And your points earned from those matches, they'll be assigned based on like just your finish against everyone else. The championship will earn more, and like the level 3 area matches will earn a little less. And then you take the top 100 scores from the entire shooter base, or top 100 point earners, and they earn the title of GM for the next season. And then in order to keep that, they have to maintain their performance in the same set of matches, if that makes sense. So that's a lot of ideas. Yeah.
So just to talk on the last part, because I think that's actually really interesting, just for the bigger gun community that understands like how cool it is for someone to say, I'm a GM, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you maintain GM, right, you actually have to then continue to maintain your status as a GM in order to keep the title. You can't say I earned it once and therefore I'm a GM.
Right.
That's right. Is that your idea? Like you have to be a continuing practitioner to keep your level of GM, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
like the idea of like guys that earned GM in like 2008, like they're really good, but now like they might not be as good as a guy that's a masterclass shooter now because there's a lot more interest in shooting, general pistol matches like USPSA, and the masters now are like GM level. And I earned it once doesn't count. I like that actually.
It's going to be difficult to execute until I have a large shooter base, and obviously the sectional matches all set up. So it may be like a few years of no one being a GM, and then we release the process basically like for maybe it's the 2024 or 2025 shooting season, and be like, hey guys, this is how you're going to qualify for the next year to be a GM. The one thing that I'm not super happy about that entire thing with is it basically makes your USPSA classification, like it supersedes the USPSA. So like an M in PCSL is basically like a GM in USPSA, and GM in PCSL doesn't even exist in USPSA. So people are going to feel worse if they transfer over and they don't earn at least the same class that they were before. So it's going to be hard to execute without a lot of help. I think behind the scenes. What do you think?
It'll take time, and I think it's also. I guess the other thing you have to consider, I think this is just a thing that I'm noticing and talking in this conversation with you guys about it, is I feel like a lot of people when they look at this and they're talking about like they understand their frame of reference from the matches that they have shot, right? So if you're big into USPSA or IDPA because you like fishing vests and have a walker or a steel challenge or 3-gun or whatever, you think about it in your context. But I think the bigger factor that's getting missed here in that is there's guys who don't actually shoot competition because they don't have a venue and they won't care, right? GM will mean something different to them than a USPSA guy, and that's fine. And that trade-off is completely worth USPSA guys saying, well, I was a GM at USPSA, and now I'm only a master. Me. Like, I don't care. Right? The trade-off is better.
Yeah, like over time, as people just understand kind of from a distance how the system works, because it's pretty simple to understand. Like you can earn these at locals, you have to go here and perform to earn this, and you have to be the top 100 to earn this. It's like very simple to understand, hard to execute from my perspective, but yeah, I don't think it's a huge deal to go from like A in USPSA and be like, oh shit, like it's gonna be hard to earn A or M over here. I don't know.
Yeah.
So specifically, what do you think about dividing, like making a lower number of classifiers and dividing them up into, like, you have to have your top 2 scores from like this type and this type and this type?
Like to make like between like A class and master class type of thing.
Just like the movement, marksmanship.
Yeah, the scenarios being totally different, so you can't just do like Fluffy's Revenge 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then classify GM. Like
I would say that it makes it a little bit more difficult on the local match directors, perhaps. I'm not sure. I would need to see how those actual stages are laid out and executed.
Yeah.
But if you just put it on a rotating basis, is that you need to rotate through month 1 you run movement 1, month 2 you run manipulation 1, and so forth. 1-1-1, 2-2-2, 3-3. It would take a while.
What if the classifier match just looked like 2 from each category?
Then that would be a great way to get people classified, probably.
And there wouldn't be any limit on like doing classifier matches at first. Obviously, I don't even know if there's any reason to limit doing classifier matches if we have the the extra umbrella of like the masters and GMs are separated from their major match performance. Like, let clubs run a classifier match every weekend.
Yeah,
Right,
and have you seen I mean, obviously you're aware that classifiers are highly indicative of major match performance, but I really like where you're going there because I've been following some of those pages that are doing like the modeling and showing how much classifiers actually indicate major match performance and vice versa. So I really like where it's at there in terms of like you have to place this well out of a big enough pool to actually achieve these higher classifications.
I was about to mention that. So Jay Slater at Jay of Mars on Instagram has been doing ELO ratings, and if you know chess at all, that's what chess uses. Basically, it's a point system that is based on
Can I
how
hire
you
him?
place.
I want to put ELO in UCSL so bad.
No, I'm serious. Yeah, you should hit him up for this because it basically eliminates the need for classifiers. Like, it's just match performance, and that's what it is.
Right.
And
like, I want a StarCraft 2 ladder system that resets every season. Like, that's exactly what this is based off of.
Dude, hit him up. Like, he will probably be happy to do this because I don't think USPSA is going to implement it.
Yeah,
but
I mean, like, Practice Score at one point was working on this. It's just like it was a back burner project. I don't think they ever made any progress with it, but
probably
they have the data, obviously.
That revolver division.
What's that?
Is that Jay Slater guy would probably do it for free if you'd open up a revolver division for him.
Oh, really? Is he the revolver guy?
Oh, yes. He's the last. He's like Radio Shack. He's like the last revolver guy.
Yeah, put me in touch with them. That'd be. I mean, I need some kind of initial thing to like just get people classified early, but I would fucking love to do that. Like, that'd be so cool. That would really like just modernize everything. And yeah, it moves slower than a video game where you can go up and down the ladder like 10 times in an hour. But
yeah, well, is the problem getting people classified sooner? Because if you're just resetting to 0 every season or whatever, every beginning of the year, whatever it may be, then does sooner matter, or is it just you'll get what you get when you go to the matches?
I think sooner is going to matter to keep customers coming back. Like, everyone's going to want to try it at their local club. Like, ooh, PCSL is a new thing. And then I don't want them to like try the match, think it's kind of cool, and then go to the website and see what the substance is behind it, and it just kind of falls flat and it's hollow. Like, I want everyone to see a future in participation.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know though, because when I first started shooting USPSA, I just went to like indoor matches and like small local matches, and I didn't really care about getting classified until I got a number, like a member number, and then BGSL was doing a classifier only match, and I was like, oh, they're doing 6 classifiers. I'll go to this and I'll get what I get. So maybe something like that, where at the beginning of the season there's a quote unquote classifier match. You get that initial rating in the ELO system, and then you go from there. Something like that, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, like, all local clubs do like a January, February classifier match, or if you're in winter states, you do it like April or something.
That also aligns perfectly. I know it's completely unrelated, but your vision of like having a media team following it like Rally Car in each season, I think it aligns perfectly with that. And I'm not sure if you thought of that or that was intentional, but I think that aligns perfectly with that everything resets. You have an actual season and people come in ranked differently. You don't have the guy that classified on a bunch of 99 series classifiers, the GM getting whipped by B-class people.
And you would get your guy, you get your media team to follow the classifiers and show up to classifiers and film them and actually talk about that for the season coming up for what's going to happen for nationals at the end of the season. That's actually pretty clever. I like that idea.
Yeah, you could.
Sorry, it's probably too far.
What's that?
Like with USPSA does, like, they have a 22 series classifiers that we're doing right now, and Trigger Freeze is the only 21 series classifier that I know of. But you can still shoot 99 series classifiers. It doesn't make any sense. but you could release a new set of standards each season. So like the classifiers are changing, so you have the 2025 series classifiers, but everybody's actually shooting them. So I think that would be a really cool way of doing that.
Yeah, it'd be hard to generate a lot of different ones every year. Like they'd have to be very similar, I feel like. Or
that's why sorry, Max, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just kind of like just stream of thought or train of thought. But yeah, like I kind of work from the USPSA framework because they're all similar, just with little tweaks. But like the way I was thinking of it, you would design like really deliberate skill tests. Like this one really tests this skill hard. This one really tests this other skill hard. And like at a major match, these are all going to be combined in multiple ways with extra wrenches thrown in your plan. So maybe they wouldn't need to be cycled as much. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. What were you going to say?
My question is, if you were to implement an ELO system, would you even need a classifier at all? Like, would that need to be a thing at all? Because like in chess, we don't do puzzles in order to get classified. We just go to tournaments to get classified.
Yeah, so the ELO system is super hard with such a slow moving sport, because your data is going to be very low confidence until you have so much time of people competing against each other. Because say like every satellite club sends, they don't send, but like a couple people from every satellite club like go to a sectional match, and only then do you have data to when they go back to their club and continue to participate. Then you can start ranking the people that did not go to the sectional match against each other, and that's super low confidence as well. So like I think doing the classifier system where they might be bigger kind of classifier stages where the clubs can put some effort in to make the stages similar and like really set them up once a year. That seems kind of cool. But then you do get data from everyone in the country.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it'd be really slow if like you had to have like Joe Farewell or someone like who's won titles before. Actually Joe Farewell holds both practical titles in our 2-gun matches. So
really, didn't know.
Mm-hmm. But like you had him, like you have to shoot against Joe Farewell to gain your ladder points. Like get as much as you can. Like it'd be really hard to do that, I think. But I don't know. I'd like to talk to his name's Jay, right?
Yeah, Jay Slater. Yeah, I sent you his
Slater.
profile on Instagram.
Okay.
Or I guess I sent you one of his posts. I'm not good at internet, but yeah, I mean he's doing some cool stuff. He's good at data, and I am not. So maybe there's something there that he can build for you guys.
So I'm about like at the end of my mental capacity here, and it's probably starting to show. I'm just like rambling on.
I was over at minute 1, bud.
Ethan has a short
I drove
bandwidth
7
these
hours
days.
today and shot a whole major match too.
Yeah, man. So just to close, what are you doing now? What does the next year look like? And what is the meaning of life?
Yeah, we'll get to this next podcast. Let me just like I'd love to keep talking to all you guys, and like if I can get in touch with you guys just on your Instagram profiles or whatever, message me on shit. I don't know. I guess Instagram's the best way if you're all on there. But we can keep talking about this stuff. Maybe do another episode at some point.
Yeah, we'd love to.
I'm gonna have to process it a lot and see what the best way forward is from here. But yeah, as far as what I'm doing, I'm just I'm gonna shoot PCC Nationals in a little bit, try to go for a 6th title, and try to balance my practice with actually like putting time into this league. But after that, I'm running both major matches we have this year. So the Big 2-Gun Championship is November 18th to the 20th. It's the weekend before Thanksgiving. If any of you guys want to come out to St. George, it's going to be an awesome time. Like one of the most fun matches you'll experience. Great staff. We have a huge staff team. Like more than enough ROs to comfortably run everyone through the stages. It's like a 2.5-day format. So 2 full days, Friday and Saturday. They're not really that long of days. We're doing 5 stages per day. And then on Sunday, we finish up the match in the morning. And then there's a catered awards lunch. And after we do awards, we're going to do a Super 6 style shoot off, which is something that I participated in first in the Czech Republic at the Extreme Euro match. But this is a really cool style of shoot off because you take the top 6 in each division. So what we do is top 6 practical competition and then top 6 ladies. And there's 3 stages that are pulled from or like selected from the match for everyone to reshoot. Like they're strategically picked for a balance of what you'd see at the match. And the final shoot off stage is like a really epic kind of like base stage that kind of tests all the skills. There's like offhand rifle and stuff. But you take the top 6 guys from each division, and then they all shoot the stage with spectators. So like everyone will shoot stage 1 of the shoot off, which again is just a reshoot of the stage from the match. So they've all got time to practice and make a stage plan and maybe fix some things that happened during the main match. Everyone's watching, and then top 4 hit factors move on to stage 2, and you do it again. Then top 2 hit factors move on to the final stage, and then you get a winner. And it's really cool because like our ROs are scoring everything, and we have the scores in the tablet. So when you got the final 2 guys running the stage, like sometimes you know who won based on like, oh, this guy like obviously took too much time on the rifle or something. But otherwise it's down to hits, right? So like you don't really know until all the hits are scored. And sometimes it's super close and you can't tell until we like reveal the winner. So it's really cool to see the best shooters in the match shoot the stages that you just shot in person. And I don't really think you can get that experience anywhere else, like in the traditional shoot-offs that you see at matches right now, I think.
That's an awesome idea. And
That's super cool.
and I guess we'll close with that. Max, we'd love to have you on again. Thank you for coming on tonight. It was a lot of fun, and I'd love to do this again.
Yeah, thanks, guys. 1-star review on Spotify.
Yeah. Leave 1-star reviews. Unfollow. Make sure the notification bell is turned off so we don't annoy you.